What's up, everybody? This is Pac-Man 1987, and welcome to my channel Crash to Desktop if you're on YouTube. I'm back playing some more Kerbal. We're going to continue designing our recreation of the Saturn V and Apollo spacecraft. And today we're going to be doing the launcher. Last time I got the command and service module and the lunar lander, or Mooner lander, completed. Did want to start with this though, because there was an issue with it last time. If you've watched the previous session, I was having problems with the parachutes. They wouldn't deploy. They kept saying they were stowed, and I've never encountered that before. I found out this is actually a bug related to fairings, or so it seems. And apparently it's been around for a while. So I want to turn that. Anyway, apparently this has been a bug for a while. I've just never encountered it before. And I figured out that what I needed to do was, I had it where the fairing was not deploying. It was just pulling away from the vehicle with the launch tower, which has worked perfectly in the past, but apparently no longer does. I found if I deployed it by having it separate, it would work. However, for the sake of this and for the sake of not having anything goof up, I am just going to leave it off. So the real vehicle would have a fairing protecting the capsule. This one will not. Just because I don't want it to go through 3 hours or however long it will take me to run this flight. That's about how long it did last time. I think it was a little shorter than that. Just to have the parachutes fail to deploy at the last moment. That would really suck. So we're going to leave those out for the sake of functionality. But everything else is looking good. I did a little tweaking to this. I added just slightly more RCS fuel. I just wanted a little bit more margin. They don't carry much. This has a grand total of 106 meters per second of RCS delta V listed, so, you know, not a lot there. But you don't need much. So, let's build a launcher. This is where it gets interesting. So the best starting place for that would actually be here, to tell you the truth. Let's lift this bad boy up. So we're just going to start at the top of the stack and work our way down, because as we build the launcher, we need it to also accommodate the weight of the payload. So let's get rolling. Double check our staging real quick. This could actually be up at the top. Everything else looks good. I like to double check it throughout the process. And let's go over here. We have a Mooner excursion module. And this is how I stack this. If it's going to let me. It better. Well, we can work on that. Looks like it's going to be finicky. But that's probably because I don't have the right part as the root. So let's open up the Mooner excursion module real quick. And we're going to change that. For some silly reason, I made the engine at the bottom, the core part, when I saved it as a subassembly, and that does not seem to work very well. Okay. Let's go ahead. Go back to our service module. We'll start there. There we go. So this is how I stack these. I don't know why I have this rotated the wrong way, but we're going to fix that real quick too. There we go. And we'll double check all of those shenanigans later on too. Because as you can see, it's going to get super freaking screwed up because Kerbal's a little bit derpy about that. The staging on these doesn't matter too much because they're going to be separating. I think we'll do them still in like chronological order. So in that case, let's throw this down here. Let's throw another one in with the separator and the second stage engine. And one fun little fact I tweaked on here, this is now gimbal locked. The Ascent engine on the real vehicle did not gimbal. So we're going to match that. It was entirely RCS to control its attitude. The Descent one did. So that's looking pretty good there. So where do we need to go from this? Well, obviously this should be inside of like a fairing. Let's take a look at what parts we have available to us. Oh, the other tweak I added was I added a probe core inside the service bay there. And there's a reason for that. When it separates at the end, it should do a little puff of RCS. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to leave that there, or I may not even use it, but I wanted the option there available. Because technically you're doing the separation like even in real life 10-15 seconds before atmospheric interface, so not a whole lot of margin to fiddle around with things, but we could. So that looks good. We need another docking point. So the way I like to do this, once this decouples, it's going to spin around, it's going to grab the lunar excursion module. Putting a separator in there makes that separation way too violent. It causes problems. So we're going to do a docking port. And we can just do a standard Clampetron docking port. That'll work fine. We're going to set it to not do a fairing, because we don't want one. And that means once we've undocked, spun around, grabbed it, we'll simply decouple that node there, and it'll drift away gently. The next thing it's going to need is a fairing. I believe, do we want, no. We want the next size up, 3.7. And this one should be, I mean, technically this is like this in real life, but we're probably gonna have to make it slightly longer because I don't think that'll work. We could see. It doesn't even like that really, so. Is there any point in that where it's okay with it? Doesn't look that way. So we'll do it like that. That's fine. It's not quite accurate. The real one was pretty much, I believe, just a cone. But this works for me. And this will be clamshell deployed in 4 sections. Which I believe it's 3. We'll double check that later. We can always tweak it. Anyway, everything else should be good. We can tweak ejection force later if needed. And the fairing will be staged. And that is there at the bottom of the stack where it should be. Excellent. So that's essentially the payload. Now we need to start working on the vehicle to launch it. So let's work our way up. One thing we will want here, and this kind of simulates something that existed in real life, and I forgot that the way I always did this was I put it in here. I'm putting a remote guidance unit in. The reason for this is that after the separation in the real world, the third stage of the rocket would dump fuel overboard, basically out the back of the cone, to generate just a little bit of propulsion. It was a remotely commanded thing, and that propulsion was like a couple of feet per second. It would move it over the course of the trip to the moon out of the way, so it would actually go past the opposite side of the moon and fly out of the system. That way there was no chance of it hitting the actual vehicle. Later ones, they actually crashed them into the moon to generate seismic waves that they could pick up with the seismic experiment they left during Apollo 11. So we're going to simulate that. The only way to do that in Kerbal is obviously to have a probe core for it. And we'll see if we need anything else. I don't think we'll need reaction wheels because of the way I'm going to do it. But we'll find out. It'll be a little tricky. Anyway, rebuild our fairing. And obviously we'll be doing an actual engine burn because you can't dump fuel in this game and therefore cannot generate thrust with it. Well, I did not like that, did it? Clamshells, 3 sections. I like it. It's all good. Still looking great. Okay. That has a few reaction wheels, so it might be useful. Actually, we should probably turn that off, because again, we don't want those. There we go. Cool. Now to build the third stage. So, in real life, the actual vehicle, obviously the launcher was 3 stages. The first stage contributed a little tiny bit more than 40% of the trip to orbit. The second stage was like 50, and the third stage was basically 8 and some change. Obviously, it didn't need to contribute too much to the trip to orbit because they were already practically there at that point. And most of the work it did was going to be transferring to the moon. I found in Kerbal, when I did this, that my values didn't always 100% match the percentages on that, but they're pretty close. We're shooting for around 1593, 1600-ish delta V. So we need 3.75 meter fuel tanks. Where are they at? Not those. Are they those? Yes, they are those. That might be what we need. That might be a bit long. We'll see. Might do that shorter. The engine we're gonna want. Is it that one? That might be the one we want. Because we want to simulate, and again, I'm not as familiar with all these new engines. Not that one. But this is simulating the third stage engine. I think I used this a long time ago, but that's not necessary anymore. Yeah, I feel like that one looks right. Yeah, I feel like that one's supposed to be it. Probably with the bear setup. That ought to do the trick. That would give us 3,945 meters per second, so we're not going to have any trouble meeting our goals. But I think visually this needs to be a bit shorter because part of the cylindrical shape is now being taken up with our fairing, and just for looks, we don't need this stage to be quite so long. So let's go back to our fuel tanks real quick. We've got that one, this one, and this one. Perhaps like one of those and one of these. I think that's a fair bit shorter. I think that looks better. And we're still massively exceeding our delta V requirements, which is great. So what we can do is we need to hit what, like half of what we have here. What did I say it was? 1,593, so about 1,600. We've got quite a bit here. Let's have it in both tanks to keep it even. See where we're at. We're way too high still. Let's jump down to here. That's pretty close. I'd rather exceed it. So I'm thinking we'll shoot for that, because extra is always better. And then we want our ground delta V, or our ground thrust to weight ratio to be a certain number to match the real vehicle. Now, again, this may not completely match. Let me just double check my numbers. Wrong numbers. The real one, I don't know if I ever came up with that actually. I had about a 0.56 thrust to weight ratio on the ground, and I actually do match that because the third stage is going to do most of its work in orbit, where that is fine. Now I'm using Kerbal Engineer, which I've used forever and I love and I like the format of, but we live in this awesome time now where we can have all of the same information shown right here in the interface. All you gotta do is click these little stages and you get all the relevant data for them. Now I still prefer this format, so I'm gonna keep using it, but I wanted to show you that that's a thing. That's really handy. This is all the engineering information you need to make an awesome vehicle. But for now I'm gonna use this. So here we are, confirming that stage 8. We got about the amount of delta V we want, but we got way too much thrust. Let's bring that down a bit. We wanted, what did I say, 0.56? Yes. And we actually want that. We're not looking at the right thing, so we need to turn this up. Kerbal. Atmospheric, because we want this to be at sea level. So we're a skitch short. So we may need to put a different engine on there. How much thrust does this guy have? 240, 300 vac. That one would work, but that's kind of the same engine. Not that one. It's really interesting that that one doesn't have enough to me, because it really feels like it's supposed to be that one. I almost feel like if we could get a little less fuel in there. Perhaps if we just did a shorter, like how would this look? It may not make a difference because of fuel mass. Or it may because of less random mass. Nope. That will not help. However, I do feel like that length is more correct. Just visually. Maybe. But we need a different engine. So let's see what else we got. We could always do a skipper. I mean, that'll do the trick. Won't quite look the part, but it'll work. Skipper's got what? 650, so we are well in excess of what's required. Let's do that. Go classic. So we've got way more than we need still. That's almost like dead on what we want. Although that fuel balancing's a little off to me. There we go. That ought to do the trick. And we have a sea level for us to wait of just a skitch over 1. So let's bring that down. We said we were shooting for 56. And we're right about there. So that should be good. Let's see what else we got. Alright. Anyway. That does it for that stage. That's looking pretty solid. Let's do the next stage. Now this one's going to be a little tricky because we want it to look right and it needs to be bigger. We're moving up to the next size up. So what you're going to get doing that is you're going to need a separator for one. And we should have a... is that one? Yeah, that one. But that doesn't really work, does it? That's not what we're really going for. And in fact, I'm going to do the bigger one. Yeah, that size. And then we're going to tell this to not have a shroud, which is a nice feature we can do now. We're going to do... How are we going to do this, actually? We're going to do a fairing. Because we don't have any fuel tanks that do quite what we need. At least I am fairly certain they don't exist. No, they don't. Because it needs to kind of cone in here. Yeah, nothing there that really does what we want. So, what we're going to do is we're going to make a fairing. But how are we going to do that? We need the bigger one. We can put it under here. But then it's gotta clip through, and it's not going to like that at all. We could do a separator. That could work. In fact, I need to double check. This stage might have had ullage motors. That is an important detail. Let me check real quick. Because what we could do is a separator, not a separator, but docking node. And then we'd have our fairing with the docking node on top of it with ullage motors. Let's do that. So what we're going to want in that case is a docking mode, or a docking node rather. Yeah, biggest one will do. Oh, that's kind of cool. Kind of doesn't really help me here, but it's kind of cool. Actually, that 100% does help me. That's what we want. We want a little one that'll keep it out of the way, or rather, that won't get in the way of the fairing. Oh my gosh, calm down. What does this have force-wise though? 125. Versus like 150 or 200. That ought to do. I want this to be tucked in more, but I don't think we can without damaging the engine. Let's see, maybe we can. Because this is kind of large. Like, this is a little bit inaccurate here. We're going to have to test that, too, to see if it actually separates. We might have to have it separate. But that's fine staging-wise. Okay, that looks good. Now we need to do the second stage of the rocket. As you can see, our Kerbal Engineer window is getting kind of big at this point. There's going to be a lot of stages. This is going to use the biggest size, and I think that one of these ought to be sufficient. That might be a bit tall. I feel like I want it to be this length. I want it to stop there. So let's make that happen. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So, where are we with that? Well, we need... There should be probably cluster engines. I know, like, this is not that one. We're gonna need to do... There's like a clustering thing, I believe. Where is it at? That's an engine mount. No, there's a large one. I know there is. Where is it hiding? I mean, there's this guy. That's interesting. I don't remember that being in there. That's kind of cool. You know what? I think it might have been one of these things. Let's see. No? We might just have to do it the old-fashioned way and stick them on the bottom and be done with it. Yeah, it's looking that way. Okay, well, we'll do that. So, engines-wise, what do we want? Probably these. I think a cluster of these might do the trick. Then as far as, like, the big ones, ooh, that's going to be interesting. Could also do... Oh, are those smaller than I thought they were? I guess they are. There were some big ones, but I could be wrong. You also stick a mainsail down there. What does that give us? Not anywhere close to what we would need. I for sure thought there were better choices. We do like a cluster of 4 of those. It won't be pretty as far as like docking, but it'll work. I still feel like I'm missing something. I swear there's like a structural circular plate. We've got structural tubes. Let's check this real quick. There's multiple variants of it. Oh. Just the color. That's disappointing. Those are pretty big. Not even close. One of these would probably work. Actually, it won't. I ended up, so the real vehicle had a 0.76 thrust to weight ratio on the second stage sitting on the ground. I ended up at a higher one just to make it work because the atmosphere in Kerbal is too thick. So I ended up at actually a 1.5 thrust to weight ratio. And that was necessary in order to get this thing to fly right. We're going to have a hard time achieving that with this by the looks of it. And keeping it like as a second stage. I could have sworn they added some useful tools for that, but I was wrong. What does this get us? None of these get us quite where we need to be. Now, here's the other thing, though, is we have way too much fuel, but not by much. So let's drop some fuel off. Get a little closer to where we need to be. We need about 1,955. So that'd be pretty good right there. We're gonna need, how much do you have? 1,500 versus 1,390. Okay. That gets us a little closer. Let's see, it won't let me do that. I'm thinking that it's going to be very hard to do the very first stage as designed. Let's try. There should be about 4 engines. Can we get the mainsail to stick to the side? We sure can't. It literally won't. Okay. That's not very helpful. Those put out 125. Those put out 300. So that's not going to work. 375. That's probably not going to work. This is the biggest, nastiest one we got. And it does not give us what we need. And it does not let me cluster it. What we need is a cluster of these. Because I believe you can do that. And then you'd have a whole bunch of them. Like, what would that give us? More than enough. That's what we need. And these just look like F1 engines, but I think that's what they're supposed to be. So, let's see if we could do that. Might work. I don't really like it though. It's also not really doing what we need it to do. How's that? That's a little better. I mean, that would get us there. The tricky bit here is now how do I stage this? That's gonna be next to impossible to stage. I need a part that flares out at the bottom. That's what I need. We may have to look for a mod in order to accomplish that, but we'll see. I'd like to do it stock. So this looks like the solution that gets us the thrust we need. Because these are putting out 5,000 kilonewtons in thrust total. That's a lot. And our value we want comes in at least according to what I had last time, at about 3,000. So that could work. Okay. Now we need to work with it. We need a way to stage this as usual. Can we do decoupling? That's an interesting thought. Obviously, we don't want those there. Ooh, you know what? I'm not thinking of something. The real vehicle. Will this work, though? The real vehicle, the stage separated and then the ring. That's that iconic picture we always see where the ring falls away from it. That actually happened after the separation. But it looks like... looks like you can't deliver fuel through that, which is really, truly unfortunate in my opinion. So I'm thinking what we're going to need to do instead, maybe the tube. That could work. Yeah. We could put a decoupler facing downward for the tube. Maybe. Let's see. I don't think we can do that, though. Because the engines won't fit in that. So that's not going to work either. What else could we do? I'm thinking... well, we have this guy to do the bottom at least, which is nice. They didn't give me anything to work with for this, so we're going to have to kind of be creative with it then. I'm thinking we do the... we'll do it backwards. We'll do the interstage ring attached to the other one, so it'll just separate at the same time. The trick is getting it to be attached in the middle. What if we did like... Do this. I think this will work. Shrouds off. That looks good. The tube's not going to do the trick, in my opinion. Well, that's interesting. How does that work? Wait a second. Can we do that? Let me see. Look at... does that work? Have I been staring at the solution this whole time? Because if I have been, I'm going to feel really silly. Interesting. Turn that bad boy upside down. Do a series of tubes. Wait for it. Where'd you go? Oh my god, where'd it go? Still not familiar with where everything is. I'm pretty sure that was in structural, yeah. Is that going to damage them, or are they going to remain happily nestled in the tube? I think they're going to be happily nestled. And then we don't need those, which is nice. And look, the tubes add additional points. I think that might work. I think it's actually going to work. We can test that. We sure can test that. So we would need a decoupler here. Oh, you know, I forgot one thing. This is a stage with Ullage motors. So we should put them on there. Just to be all official like. We still got way more fuel than we're gonna need. That ought to do the trick. More than we'll need, but that's fine. I think it's gonna work. Or it'll all explode. One or the other. But yes, the thing I said we needed was Ullage motors, which they would fire... I'm going to have to double check that, but we can always tweak the staging later. I believe they're going to fire after the ring falls away and before the engines do their thing. But we're probably going to need them to pull it away. Let's stick them on there. If you don't know what I'm talking about the little teensy tiny... Little teensy tiny ones, and we may need more than this, I'm not sure. Alright. So those would fire when this fires. Is what I'm thinking. Then this separates, then these fire. All of these are accomplishing is to move the second stage away. I think we need to put one up here too, but we'll deal with that later. Since they don't really affect anything much. So now we can do the third stage. Or I'm sorry, the first stage. We're getting pretty close. We already know what we need. This one's easy. We need this bad boy. And we need to raise the rocket higher. There we go. And then we have this thing that we need to raise the rocket higher. Goodness gracious. It's getting tall. In fact, it's as tall as it can be almost. How about that? That's what I'm talking about. And I know for a fact that these are the engines we want. But we obviously want them in that format? Probably? No, it's clipping. We want that format. That, and then that. Or, you know, not. Now, obviously, in the real vehicle, it didn't use the same engines on the first and second stages, but we kind of have to do that here in order to even get the thrust we want. So, what are you going to do? Except even this will not give us the thrust we want. Luckily, we don't need this stage to have as much fuel in it as it currently has, so let's see what we can do about that. That's less than I think I need, but we can try it. Our problem is thrust. We don't have enough thrust. We need a bigger engine. I don't think we've got one. Can't do those. I don't think. Do they have a fairingless version of them? They sure don't. This is supposed to be able to do it. I almost feel like they added these Apollo parts with the intention that you'd only make a two-stage rocket, is I think what they were doing. Which is a problem. This needs to have the real vehicle had a 1.18 thrust to weight ratio. That's why when you watch takeoff of the Apollo Saturn V rocket, it's super slow. You get that dramatic climb. That's not slow motion. That's really what it did. Because it was so heavy. It was humongous. So thrust to weight ratio is very low. I like to give this maybe like a 1.2. Hey, it updated. That's a good sign. 1.11. It's not quite where we want to be. Is there anything we can do to make this better? We could give this stage less. 1.12. We're in the intense weight shavings section of the plan. Not quite where I need it to be. We could also shoot for a lower altitude. This was originally designed to do 130 kilometers, and that is because the real vehicle, its parking orbit was at about, I believe, 100 kilometers, and that's about 1.88 times the Kármán line, where the quote-unquote beginning of space is. On the real world, Kerbin's atmosphere is massively thick compared to its radius when compared to Earth's, so for that it would be like, 130 something. So we could give it less fuel. What do we need? We only need, let's dump some fuel and see what we get. We may not really need all of this. Let's leave the third stage as is. Let's downrate the second stage. So we're looking at maybe like... That's getting better. $1,800 there. That's $5,100. That would be just about right. I mean, just about on the money. Let's give this less. There we go. That gives us the leeway we need. Let's fly this in here. And then we'll just see what we can accomplish with this thing. And again, this should be a much lower ratio, but... And we can play with that. Maybe we can use the first stage to get higher and the second stage... Maybe? I don't know. Thing with Kerbin, again, is the atmosphere is massively thick, so by the time this stage at the bottom runs out, you still have a ton of atmosphere to go, and your thrust-to-weight ratio will be nothing at that point, and you're screwed. So, there's that. We need to put wings on it. Let's see if that dips our thrust-to-weight a bit. I'm thinking... these aren't wings that actually control anything, for one. They just need to be wings. And they don't even need to be particularly big. They weren't. Like, that's too big. It's literally just stabilization. I could have sworn there's a better triangle. That might do the trick. Layout's kind of goofy. It's not really the way it was in real life, but it'll do the trick. Oh yeah, it barely affected it at all. But that'll stabilize us, which is what we want. I mean, we could put them there too. Just doesn't look quite right to me. I think that's pretty solid. So that does that, and then we just downrate these ever so slightly. Maybe not that much. 94. Close. Give him 95. There we go. That matches the real vehicle perfectly. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a rocket. It's definitely looking very rockety to me. Gonna need a little more tweaking, I think, but we could probably stand to test it. Actually, we want this to be the... yeah, we'll just call it Kapala. Let's check our staging. There we have a problem there. We need those all to fire. Now, in the real vehicle, that center engine would cut off partway through the flight. We can simulate that by simply dropping the throttle about 20%. Alright, so then we've got, moving up, we have stage 2, separating and firing ullage motors to move away. Removing the ring. Hopefully that doesn't explode before engines fire. Then up here, that separates. Hopefully that doesn't get stuck, but we can work on that if it does. Then this bad boy fires. And I think everything else is good. It should all still be the same. There's that. And then, yeah. Everything else looks great. We do want our abort sequence, which may or may not have come with us. That looks good. That looks good. These all look good. I think we're looking good. The last thing we would want is launch tower to hold it. Should be here. We're gonna make that as tall as we possibly can because it's kind of gonna need it. This thing is gonna be, I don't know yet. It's gonna be pretty flimsy. We're gonna probably want to do some auto strutting actually. In fact, let's do that. We're gonna have them auto strut to the heaviest part at all times. Yeah. What about you? That seems reasonable. Heaviest part. Heaviest part. Heaviest part. This seems reasonable to have them all on the heaviest part, but we'll have to see the performance. If it starts getting wibbly wobbly or just straight falling apart, we'll know that we have problems. But I think we're looking good. Let's do a test launch just to see how badly it goes. I always like to rotate my vehicles to the right like that, so that I can just pull back. It's looking pretty good. I mean, look at that. I like it. Alright, we want SAS. We'll fuel throttle. This is probably going to be really loud, so I'm going to turn my volume down just a bit. And then let's see what we get. It's going to be really slow off the pad, let me tell you. Also, caps lock to put us into fine control. And my staging was wrong. Didn't pay attention. Always check your staging. We're off to an excellent start. You there. Alright, let's give this another try. Looking good so far. Now the real thing would have pitched over immediately upon clearing the tower. That's how most launches in the real world work. But we're not going to do that. We're going to... last time I did this, I pitched over at about... Now, I like to pitch over 5 degrees, catch it, and as soon as it catches up, we're going to throttle down about 20% here, and we're just going to give it a nudge. This thing is going to fly itself. I'm not, there's no SAS, nothing. It's doing pretty good. I don't know why it's rolling, but that's easy to fix. I'm going to turn SAS back on. Look at that. Look at that. How about it? I think it's safe at this point to jettison the escape tower. I would honestly call this a pretty much textbook launch. I think we're doing really good. I'm going to go a little higher than 80. I think we have the fuel for it. We probably have enough to go to 100. Or thereabouts. That'll give us a little more horizontal speed to work with. Alright. The tricky bit about this now, I almost am inclined to just separate and see how that does. So let's go up here. Add a maneuver. That should be good. It says to start the burn in... There we go. 38 seconds. It's going to be... Maybe? Yeah. It's going to be a minute. It is actually telling me what it's going to be. So, how much delta V do we have currently? 2,090... 1,900 on this one. We'll see. I think that'll leave me enough to get to the moon. We're not going to do that right now. I just want to see if this gets to orbit. Which it really looks like it's going to do. Although we are like wildly rotating off axis, and that's a slight problem. Yeah, I think this will leave me with enough to get to the moon. I think we got ourselves a winner. I mean, we could do ourselves like, you know, just an orbital stage testing here real quick. Do some orbit testing. That'd be pretty fun. To make sure everything works. One thing I forgot to do, but we could probably do it with the camera, is I forgot to do the thing where I activate the fuel cell, because I didn't think I was going to come up here. That might cause us some problems. Close enough. We're going to give ourselves a little burst of speed to clear that up. There we go. Yeah, look at that. I'm liking it. Like I said, I'm gonna F5 this. I don't think I can open this. and not break it? Oh, I can. Look at that. Start the fuel cell. Close that thing. Sweet. Okay. Let's turn the lights on for one. Oh, yeah. Although maybe not on this guy. Because that will drain electric charge. Yeah, let's do an orbit test real quick. Again, F5. As I said before, we're just going to decouple this. And then we're going to do some things real fast. For one, set that as target. Control from here. Turn. All right. This is going to get a little wonky. We're not really in an optimal angle for this, so it's not going to work great. But we'll be able to pull it off. What are you doing? The controls are all wacky. Alright, now just account for drift. I think we're pretty well lined up. Might need a little tweaking. It's looking good. Darn. That did not work. Let's try that one more time. I think we can do it better. We might need to make this stick out further. It may not be able to get close enough. We'll see. Which, that's an easy design tweak. See just how close we can do this. I mean, we are drifting apart from it, but... the closer we can be when we start this process, the absolute better. I think we're drifting out. Yeah. Yeah, we're a little off. But that's okay. Yeah. Oh, hey. It's a little off. Let's give it a burst. Time warp to stabilize. Very useful trick. A little off. We're going to want to make that stick out a little further, but that's an easy fix. And then we just decouple. Boom. Voila. Not too shabby. I mean, this is looking pretty solid right here. Put an orbital camera mode. Let's point it outward. The more of this I can do manually, the better, because it saves our limited monopropellant. And it is limited. We gotta be careful with it. I'm probably going to just discard this, though, because I didn't bring enough Kerbals along to actually test it, but that's okay. Alright, so we've done our due diligence. We tell it to point radio out, stop it, and then give it a, well, give it a burst of time warp to stabilize. Very useful trick. And then we'll go ahead and discard that. You know what? We can do the... make sure the gear is fine. It's looking solid. I'd say that's a pretty good test. We know it's going to re-enter just fine. Yeah, things are looking good. Pretty solid. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now. We have ourselves a complete vehicle. I'm going to need to do a little bit of tweaking. I'm going to need to do some testing. And I have some ideas as far as the actual flight. Now, I'm still shooting to do that on Saturday. Or if you're in the future watching this on YouTube or Twitch, it'll be the next episode. But shooting to do that Saturday on the anniversary. And I have some ideas. I took it pretty far last time trying to make things accurate as much as I could. I've found some very interesting new information today, a little bit more detail than I've known before on the actual landing procedures and the sequence of events and the state of the vehicle at given points in the landing on the moon. And it's really fascinating stuff. Finally figured a few things out that I've actually been trying to figure out for a while. And I think I might be able to incorporate some of the information to make the landing even more accurate than it has been in the past when I've done it. It may actually be a very viable landing technique once I work it out. So that's going to be interesting if it works. I'm going to have to do some practice. It should be good. So watch for this happening Saturday. It'll probably be late in the day. I'm thinking late afternoon, early evening, because I'm going to need most of the day to practice and plan. But if you are still watching, I hope you're enjoying. And I will see you Saturday. Or again, if it's the future, I will see you in the next episode. So have a good one.